This buffed out Hunter Void Volatile build makes you a PvE god. You're going to be running around in endgame PvE whilst massively under the recommended power level with multiple benefits. You're going to get infinite invis, infinite volatile rounds, infinite devour which gives you faster grenades and health on every single kill, as well as a bunch of other additional benefits to make this build as powerful as it can possibly be. And the best part about this build is that you're getting all these effects simultaneously. So the instant health and ability energy are applied to you while you're just casually going about your day, chaining between the invis and volatile rounds. And although this season we don't have many artifact perks that benefit the void subclass during Season of the Wish, you'll be able to use this build in any season that you want and it'll work exactly the same regardless. So any perks we do use are just a bonus. Now I've used this build in master content whilst almost 30 under the recommended power level, which is pretty much just as hard as a Grandmaster Nightfall. So this build really does test its limits, and I have to say, it does an amazing job despite losing last season's perks and getting a bunch of nerfs on top, but I will go through all that shortly. So guys, if you like this one, then a rating is much appreciated. Otherwise, before we start, be sure to visit my sponsor Instant Gaming, where you can buy cheaper games for up to 90% off, which includes all the best and latest games out as well as pre-orders. So you can even pre-order the Final Shape expansion for a better deal as well. And if you don't fancy buying anything, why not join our free monthly giveaway for a chance to win any game of your choice, because who knows, you might get lucky. But now with that said, let's get straight into the video. Roll the intro. Now we have covered a lot of new builds over the past few years, and with every new season we get a bunch of new artifact perks and quality of life changes, as well as exotic reworks, which is why builds in Destiny 2 change and develop over time. So if you like these builds and you want to keep up to date with the latest Destiny 2 builds out, then be sure to check out my full playlist down below, as I do cover new and updated builds every week here on the channel, and you guys might just find your new best build. But with this one today, we're updating the Void Hunter build, which is pretty much the same as the past few seasons, except this time we have had a few changes that I want to go over that came out with the new Season of the Wish, because these changes affect this build specifically. And the major thing that Bungie did was a whole ability rework and tuning to a bunch of mods, as well as some fragments like Devour which have also been affected too. And since this is an infinite invis, volatile and Devour build, we will want to make sure that despite those changes we can still achieve that same goal this season and keep this build going strong while playing endgame content. And from my tests, these changes haven't really made a huge impact on the performance of the build, so it is just as good as last season. But of course we do have different artifact perks, so we're not going to get the same benefits we had previously either. Now you can use this build as its base setup if you just don't care about making changes every season. That is fine, it does do a great job. But this season we had one change with Devour. So Devour in general now doesn't heal the full amount it used to, so that is a nerf, but from my experience with it, it honestly doesn't feel any different. You're still getting health back consistently, and even in endgame content or content where you're taking a lot of damage, just killing adds will still help you maintain that health before adds can kill you. Mods did also get a bit of a nerf too, which just means our kickstart mods are not going to be as useful as they were previously, since you now have to have armor charge stacks. And the general cooldown mods are slightly worse as well, but we will work around those, because that's why we have an updated build video, so that we can make a few slight changes to re-optimize the build for Season of the Wish. So a quick demonstration of the way you'll use this build is you'll first run in and dodge to go invisible. You then come out of invis and kill 2 adds with a void weapon to spawn an orb and a breach while getting volatile rounds. Picking them up will give you ability energy and devour, which then means you're pretty much unkillable with your health constantly refreshing while going invis at the same time too. Now this is great in easy content, right? But what about a master activity whilst underpowered, where you might not be able to kill adds instantly? Well, you're going to play it the same way. Go invis, get kills, pick up orbs and breaches, except you're not going to play too aggressively. You'll want to sit back more with ideally other void weapons like a Limon bow for example, because running in, trying to get kills to keep that loop going all the time just isn't going to be as effective. So sitting back slightly, especially in a GM, will be ideal so you don't run in and instantly get yourself killed. You do however though want to try and pick up those orbs and breaches in between so you can get that initial devour going, and then just sit back, get kills and refresh that devour to keep getting health back on kills. And with activities where you have awful modifiers like attrition, this build is just going to be really good to use to keep you alive most of the time. Now with Gyrfalcons, which we're going to be using, your void weapons will gain volatile rounds after you emerge from being invisible. So because of that, we're going to use our first void aspect, the Stylish Executioner, and what this does is make you invisible when you defeat a volatile target. So first we're getting volatile rounds for our void weapons, and then we're going invisible when defeating those volatile targets. So that's how that loop works. But to initially get that first invis, to begin that loop, we're going to use the second aspect, Vanishing Step, where dodging makes you invisible. So these two aspects are a requirement. Just make sure you're running some good void weapons like a Commemoration or a Funnel Web, or even just some good exotics for endgame PvE. To get Devour for the instant health and kills and faster grenades, you're going to want to use the Echo of Starvation Void Fragment, where picking up a Void Breach or an Orb grants Devour. Although this did get nerfed slightly, it honestly just doesn't make much of a difference, so it is still worth using. Now I tend to use the other fragment, Echo of Cessation, where defeating a volatile target creates a Void Breach, just because it's so consistent, but you don't need to have this on because we'll also generate the orbs too. And we'll do that by using a Void Siphon mod in the helmet, so make sure you have that on, unless you have better ways to make orbs. You also want to be using the Echo of Persistence, so that the buffs last longer, and this just helps a lot more in endgame content, where killing adds takes a bit more time, so make sure that's on. And then the last fragment I'm using is just the Echo of Dilation, so we can get a few extra stats to try and get my triple 100 stats from ability, resilience and intellect. Too short sadly, but we'll manage for the time being. But if you're not going to use that fragment, then your replacement would be Echo of Expulsion. Now the other stuff I'm using in the subclass are just a Deadfall Super and Moebius, but I tend to swap between both depending on what I'm doing. So Deadfall I'll use when I'm with a team, and the Moebius I'll use when I'm playing solo, just for a bit of extra DPS on bosses. For the dodge, I'm using a Gambler's Dodge, then I have a Triple Jump, Snare Bomb and a Vortex Grenade. All of these are fully flexible choices, so you can use whatever you prefer. It won't affect the build at all, and since this build isn't dedicated to a specific season, you won't need to run any artifact perks, but the ones I would recommend running during Season of the Wish are this one here, so you can increase the ability damage to Taken and Scorn, Wished into Being for more orbs when close to a full super after getting an ability Final Blow, Solo Operative if you're playing solo, I tend to use this quite a lot, and then Argent Ordnance if you're using rocket launchers, and in general just want to try and pull off more DPS when doing things like a raid or dungeon. But the build will work fine without these perks, so they are just a bonus. Not as good as previous seasonal perks we've had in the past, but some are better than none, so it's just up to you if you want to use them or not. Now for mods, these are quite important, so I just have 2 heavy ammo finders and a void siphon in the helmet. Arms, I have a firepower and 2 ballstring detonations for reduced class cooldown. Chest, I have my damage resist mods, which you'll want to change depending on the activity that you're playing. Legs, I have my scavenger mod and some cooldown ones again for the class ability. And then in the class itself, I'm using 2 utility kickstarts because you want your primary focus to be getting that dodge back as quick as possible, especially in endgame content where you might run out of time before getting kills with say a primary void weapon if you don't use things like a machine gun. But either way, this build is going to do a fantastic job for you in all types of content. Anyway, this here is the artifact setup if you want to copy it, and again the full mod screen setup, but the dim link is down below anyway. This is by far one of the best hunter builds in Destiny 2 Lightfall Season of the Wish right now, and you guys definitely need to set this one up. But if you didn't like this build, then check out the full playlist down below for other choices. Otherwise, I'll see you soon for the next build. Take care guys.